Hey guys, it's Will here, and tonight I'm going to do some list building with this book here, Gathering Storm number 2, Fracture of Biel Tan. Now, first I want to say sorry, it's been a little while since I've had much content up. I've been a bit under the weather with a cough, which in itself isn't too much of a problem, but it meant I was losing my voice for a few days, and it's kind of hard to record anything without a voice. So yeah, that was that. I managed to get a few back reps that I already had recorded, uploaded, and yeah, but I'm back now and ready to do some videos. Now, me and Sam reviewed this a few weeks ago when it first came out, and for those of you who saw that, you may have noted that Sam was a little bit negative. I don't think you'll mind me saying that. It was kind of the comment we got from a few people. Basically, he'd had a really bad day and was a bit frustrated with the book because it took an army that were already a bit overpowered, shall we say, and gave them even more strength. And it's an army Eldar that always frustrated him anyway, and his frustration came out as negativity. So yeah, fair play to Sam. You know, those are your opinions. Yeah, but I know a few of you guys were a bit kind of meh on that, so sorry about that. But hopefully normal service will be resumed when we do our next review, when Book 3 comes out in a week or so. But anyway, enough about that. Tonight we're looking positive, and we're going to take a look at some list building with Fracture of Biel Tan. Now, the list building process from this is quite complicated because you've got new formations, new characters, and it pulls in 3 books worth of stuff. You've got the Eldar and the Dark Eldar codexes that can be taken in this, and also the Harlequins. Now, I don't currently own the Harlequin Codex, so in this first batch of lists I've done, because this is likely to be the first in maybe a 2 or 3 part series looking at ways to list build with the Ynnari. So in the latter parts I'm hoping to pull in some Harlequin stuff, but for this first one, no Harlequins today, but hopefully getting the rules in a few weeks. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the lists. So tonight I've done 3 army lists, all with very different philosophies behind them. And in preparing these, I've come across a few challenges of list building with the Fracture of Biel Tan and the Eldari. The first being the sheer number of options. The Eldar book has got plenty of options in it as it is, and then just with pulling in the Dark Eldar stuff and the new formations from Fracture of Biel Tan, that's enough to give you way too many options. You can't get everything you want because there's just too much good stuff in there. Second problem was anti-tank. There's plenty of anti-tank in there, but I kept finding every time I sort of came up with a list, I was always short on ranged anti-tank units. It's not that the ranged anti-tank isn't good, it's just the stuff that I particularly wanted to include, or looked fun, or was kind of the easy, obvious picks, was not anti-tank, usually sort of capping out strength 6 stuff with warp spiders, jet bikes, etc. So I kind of feel like some of the anti-tank in these lists is a little bit shoehorned in. And the third problem was I could only do one of the formations from Gathering Storm because I haven't got the Harlequin book yet, but that is what it is. Hopefully get it soon. Anyway, let's take a look at these lists. So the first one that I've done is kind of to give an idea of what a fun sort of let's have some fun with the new rules type of Ynnari list is. So I've done 2,000 points because that gives you the flexibility to include a few extra things that you might not be able to squeeze in without sort of having to worry so much about points efficiency, and more being just about having an army that is something different and a bit fun to play with. So the way I've done this is to start off with the Triumvirate of Ynnari. So this is the box set of the Visarch, Ivrain and the Incarn. And these do run you about 625, 675, something like that. A lot of points. So like I said, it's not the most points efficient of lists, but what you do get is Yvrain, who's a decent psyker and a decent melee character, the Vizark, who's a bit of a challenge master, and then the Incarn is a big monster, who also is a level 3 psyker. So you've got some good stuff in there, and I think stuff that people are going to want to play with because they are gorgeous models. Then backing them up, I have another formation, the Soulbound Vanguard. Now this is 2 units of Dire Avengers, 1 unit of Incubi, and 1 unit of Witches, and they get bonus weapon skill and ballistic skill if Yvrain or the Vizark are in a unit. They also get longer range on their Soul Burst, 14 inches rather than 7, and they get Furious Charge if they're within 7 inches of another unit from this formation. And what I've done with this is taken 2 units of 9 Avengers with Exarchs with Shimmer Shields, because I think that's one of the better builds for Avengers, and stuck them in Wave Serpents, and both of these Wave Serpents have underslung Shuriken Cannons, the upgrade weapon there, and then the Twin Link Bright Lances on the turret, because I needed some anti-tank, because none of the units in this are particularly great anti-tank units in this formation. So yeah, so you've got 2 nice bulky anti-infantry shooting units that can get nice and close. You need to get close to make the most of the Soul Burst action. And yeah, Avengers are good. People always talk about warp spiders and jet bikes with Eldar, but Avengers are not to be underestimated. If you've seen some of my battles with them, particularly against Sam, he fears my Avengers. He does not like them. Then the Incubi, I've gone for a unit of 8. Basically I wanted to keep the squads to a decent size, but I was a little tight on points even at 2000, and I wanted to make room so that the characters could join any of these units. So I've got 8 Incubi with a Clavex, and mounting them in a Raider with Night Shields, so they've got a way to get to combat, because that's all they're doing is combat, so they need to get there quickly, and the Night Shields just helps keep the Raider alive a little bit longer. And then 8 Witches as well, again for the same reasons the Incubi, and they've got a Raider with Night Shields as well, and some upgrades on the Witches. I've given one of them Hydra Gauntlets because of the upgrade weapons. I think that's probably the best one because it gives you reroll to wound, because Witches are less likely to be wounding because they're naturally only strength 3, although you know they'll be potentially strength 4 with the Furious Charge from this, but you know I thought the bonuses to wound are probably going to count for more. And then gave them a Hecatrix, which is like the Sergeant upgrade, for an extra attack, extra Pippa leadership, and she's got an Agonizer, so she's always wounding on a 4+ regardless, ignoring armour, and then she's got a Haywire Grenade just in case you run into a tank, because why not? So that is a real sort of solid core to the army. All of these units provide really good anti-infantry at close range, and some nice shenanigans with the Soul Burst there. And then to cap off the army, I've gone for a Reborn Warhost detachment. Now this is the kind of the version of a CAD that Ynnari have access to. Essentially has the same structure as a CAD, but you gain different bonuses, and you can pull in anything from Eldar, Dark Eldar or Harlequins, but not anything Homunculus, Mandrakes or the Avatar of Cain, but everything else is allowed. Gone for a Farseer to lead this because I needed an HQ choice, and I thought the Farseer was probably going to be one of the more fun options. He can join a unit and then add further psychic support, giving me a total of 8 levels of Psyker on the board, so this army is going to have a very fun psychic phase. I would probably go Telepathy on this Farseer and then Revenant Discipline on the other 2. Telepathy is just such a great discipline. If you can get that invisibility, that would be really handy to pop invisibility on some of these units. Then my 2 troops are going to be 2 units of 3 Windrider jet bikes with scatter lasers. Just the obvious choice really. every Eldar player has bucket loads of these. They were a cheap troops unit I could squeeze in here. And then finally I've gone for a Falcon Grav tank as a heavy support choice. This is to give me a bit more anti-tank, upgrading that with a Bright Lance, because in terms of ranged anti-tank it's one of the better options. You could in theory swap it out for a Ravager, which would do about the same but not quite such good armour, or a Fire Prism, although personally I find the Falcon is better than the Fire Prism because it doesn't suffer from single gun syndrome. But yeah, that, if I've done the maths right, runs us at 2,000 points. And you've got a nice list with solid core of troops, some good speed, everything is either fast moving in of its own right or is in a transport. You've got some combat, you've got some shooting, and most importantly you get to play with the new formations and the big new shiny models. Now if I just grab my next list, which is buried under here, this is a very different list entirely. This is no more Mr. Nice Guy. This is my attempt at doing a really strong, powerful Ynnari list. Now, in theory, you could just drop down a standard tournament Eldar list and just say, yeah, I'm using the Reborn Warhost detachment rather than the, rather than the CAD, and yeah, just count all the Eldar as Ynnari. Perfectly legal and it's very powerful. But I wanted to do something a little bit different and include some Dark Eldar units because, you know, if you want to run just Eldar, just run Eldar. You know, if you want to run a mix, then that's what Ynnari's all about. And, you know, there's a few things in here that are set to exploit that, although it does have a lot of the components you would expect from a traditional powerful Eldar list. So starting off, I've got an Autarch. Now, he is something a bit different. He's not normally what most people would run as a competitive option, but he's a really cheap HQ, and from my mind is very good for this type of list because there's going to be a lot of reserves. And I want to manipulate those reserves. The Autarch gives you a choice of +1 or -1 to all your reserve rolls, and yeah, I thought he'd be a really good choice. I've mounted him on a Windrider jet bike to give him some manoeuvrability and to match the speed of the unit I'm going to be putting him in, and then he's got a Banshee Mask and a Laser Lance. Laser Lance because I think it's a really good value for money combat weapon for a mounted Autarch. It's cheaper than a power weapon and potentially more devastating, especially on the charge, and with a jet bike he's going to be getting the charge. And I've also given him a Banshee Mask to protect him and his unit from Overwatch fire. This, by the way, is using the Reborn Warhost detachment as well because it's just has the same structure as a CAD and gives you some really great options and a lot of flexibility. And I've gone for 1850 points in this because that is more of the standard tournament size, although a lot of them around here are 1750. I know internationally 1850 is kind of the standard these days. So that's my Autarch, and then for my troops I have 6 units of 3 Windrider jet bikes with scatter lasers. 6 scat packs. These guys are just brilliant. They're one of the best units in the game. Masses of firepower, great manoeuvrability, surprisingly survivable thanks to their ability to manipulate cover, and now if you do kill them, well, the squad next to them is going to shoot you back, so you know, they're even better in this. They do lose OBSEC, but if all your opponents are dead, you don't need to worry about OBSEC because they're dead. You know, no surprises here. 6 scat packs. Fast attack choices might surprise you though. Start with, I've got 6 Reaver jet bikes. Now, these I think are a bit underrated and are a great partner for the Autarch. You've got Skilled Rider, so their Jink is on a 3+. You've got Hit and Run, so they can get into the fight and get out quickly. I've got 2 cluster caltrops on there which stack with the blade vanes for some great Hammer of Wrath attacks on there, and I've upgraded one to an arena champion and wanted to give him a agonizer but just couldn't quite find the point, so I've gone for a power weapon. But the idea is these aren't going to be a real hammer close combat unit, they're going to be more of a mopping up, picking off little units. It's entirely possible actually that they could kill a unit in combat and then use the soul burst from that to get away nice and quickly with a good turbo boost. Really sort of manoeuvrable, hit the opponent in the right place at the right time sort of unit, and they add a nice little bit of protection to my Autark, who then conversely gives them protection from Overwatch with his Banshee Mask. My other two fast attack choices are going to be Razor Wing Jet Fighters. Like I said, I wanted to include some Dark Eldar elements in here, and I think the Razor Wing, at least on paper, is a brilliant flyer. I've upgraded both of these with Dark Lances and Splinter Cannons, but kept all the missiles stock to give it sort of a good flexible sort of anti-tank, anti-infantry, anti-flyer, anti-monstrous creature. They can do a bit of everything. The reason for wanting these is of late I've been having a lot of trouble with flying monstrous creatures in particular. Not so much your standard flyers, I'm not seeing many of them, but I'm having a lot of trouble with flying monstrous creatures. I'm seeing them a lot more, and I think the combination of lances and splinter cannons is really great for at least keeping them on their toes, keeping them jinking, plinking off some wounds, maybe grounding them, stopping them from doing their job. And two of these guys I think is great. And then if your opponent doesn't bring any monsters or flyers, just open up with those missiles and then go on to anti-tank duty with the lances. They're a very flexible flyer, not overly expensive, a good choice I think. Then in heavy supports, I got another flyer. I got a Void Raven Bomber. I think if you're going to go flyers, you need to go kind of lots or none. I think one flyer is too easy to shoot down, but three of them means that something's going to get through and do a hell of a lot of damage. And if your opponent doesn't have AA, then they're going to be really struggling with these guys. Void Raven, I have gone for the standard armament, but then upgraded it with 4 Shatterfield missiles as well. So you've got the air-to-air, the air-to-ground, anti-tank, anti-infantry. Like the Razor Wings, it can do a bit of everything. And the 3 flyers together, hopefully all coming in on turn 2 because of the Autark, gives me a really strong aerial presence to just blow up anything that's giving me trouble. And then Lord of War, you wouldn't be a competitive Eldar list without one of these, and that is the Wraith Knight. Oh yes, I'm not going to leave him out. I don't personally own one, but I know how good they are. Running him stock, upgraded with the shield and the sword. Trying to keep him alive as long as possible, take some of the fire away from the rest of the army, and aiming just to get into combat, hit hard, cause a lot of disruption. Wraith Knight can soul burst, so he can potentially get into combat in the opponent's turn. Say there's a scatterbike unit near him, someone shoots down the scatterbike unit, Wraithguard gets to move forward, or if it gets to charge in your opponent's turn if you couldn't pull the charge off in your turn. I think the soul burst rule makes an already really strong unit even better. And then rounding out the army, I've got an aspect host formation, which you can include in the Reborn Warhost detachment, so they still count towards the 7 required units to gain the stronger benefits from the Reborn Warhost. And all 3 of these are going to be Warp Spiders. 3 min units of Warp Spiders with Exarchs. Again, just a brilliant unit that a lot of Eldar players already know and love, but get even better with Soul Burst because they're very short ranged anyway. When they kill something, it's almost always going to trigger a Soul Burst because they're going to be close. Maybe not almost always, but you can certainly manipulate it so they're within that magic 7 inches of what they kill, and then they get another move or another shot, and just really can abuse that. And they're just such a strong unit anyway. Too much of an obvious include. But there we go, that's 1850 points of Ynnari. This list is really manoeuvrable, has a ton of firepower, great aerial presence, really keeps all the options covered. And then that little surprising sting in the tail with the Reavers. You know, a lot of competitive Eldar lists lack any melee focus, but you know, here if someone is getting too close, send in the Reavers, hit them with the cluster caltrops and the Autarch's laser lance, send them packing, and if it doesn't work, well, you can always just hit and run out of combat. So that is that. Now the final list I've got is something a bit different. I wanted to make the most of the Black Guardian formation in here. If I can just find the name of it. So this is the Ulthwe Strike Force, which is a formation essentially allows you to take 1 to 4 Ulthwe units, and they get 2 deep strike potentially on turn 1. So yeah, a potentially really cool formation, and what I've done is I've abused this and brought in the Seer Council as well from the Eldar book to make a full Ulthwe army, a real sort of thematic army. Yeah, let's go into this and see what we've got then. So starting with the Seer Council, put these on jet bikes because it adds their survivability and manoeuvrability. So this has got 2 Farseers, both on jet bikes, one with a Spirit Stone of Anathlan, and then 5 Warlocks on jet bikes. Idea here would be the 2 Farseers both roll on telepathy, aiming to get me invisibility to keep this Seer Council invisible, and then, you know, scoot around blasting out psychic shrieks and other various powers, and generally supporting the army. Then I've got my Ulthwe forces. So in the end I went for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got 10 units here. So this would be 2 maxed out formations, which would allow me 2 deep strike on turn 1, and then 1 of formation of just 2, which I would probably just leave on the board. I wouldn't deep strike them, but they could be deep struck on turn 2 if you wanted. Obviously you'd still need to roll 3 pluses for these, but that's pretty reliable. So the first one is 3 units of Black Guardians. So they're going to be units of 10 with the standard shuriken catapults, and then upgraded with a shuriken cannon weapon platform, because I think it matches the battlefield role of the rest of the squad well. Normally don't like running Guardians on foot, or to be honest Guardians at all, but with deep strike, perfect deep strike within 9 inches nonetheless, or not within 9 inches of the opponent, they can get to where they need to be and do the damage before it's too late. And because at this point these are considered an Eldar unit, not a Ynnari unit, they can then potentially battle focus away as well. And then backing them up, I've got a unit of 2 Warwalkers, both with Bright Lances for some anti-tank. Then the second formation, it likewise has a unit of 2 Warwalkers with double Bright Lance for a bit more anti-tank. I think Bright Lance is a particularly good anti-tank on these guys because they've got that deep strike. They can get in the rear and side armour of vehicles. So strength 8 against AV10 is much better than strength 8 against AV12. And then I've got 3 units of Windriders in this formation, so 3 units of 3, all scatter lasers. We all know how good Windriders are, we don't really need to say anything more. Then the final formation is just 2 units in this. They're both Vipers. One's a unit of 3 with Eldar missile launchers. This gives me some flexibility and potential AA as well. And then one of 2 Vipers, because I had points left over. These are both packing scatter lasers and shuriken cannons for some more mobile anti-infantry. The way this list would run would be the Seer Council starts on the board in cover, the Vipers start on the board in or behind cover, and then very quickly everything else arrives by deep strike. The Vipers come out of hiding, the Seer Council surges forward with hopefully invisibility up, and it just starts to tear into the opponent before they really know what's hit them. Don't know how competitive this will be, but I think it'll be a fun way for people who are really interested in the fluff of the Ulthwe craft world to make a list that really reflects that. Anyway, as you can hear, my voice is starting to get a bit croaky now, but I hope you enjoyed this video and these lists. If you did, leave a like, and yeah, I might do some more sometime soon. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.